Good morning. Today we continue with our series on Jesus' last week here on earth, the week of the Passion. Yesterday we were considering the question of prayer and with particular reference to the need to forgive others if we are to unlock, or so to speak, if we are to make our prayers make any sense. Now, all this time Jesus is teaching at the temple and crowds are milling around him and somebody is watching. The religious leaders are not happy with him. They have had stories for the past 3 years of what Jesus has continued doing. They have heard of cases of miracles performed. And they have heard that Jesus is teaching things that are making them, the religious leaders of the day, look bad. And so they look for a way to eliminate him. However, there is a problem. This guy has become too popular. How are we going to just get him, arrest him, and charge him? What are we going to do with the masses? And remember, this is the Passover, and Jerusalem is full of people, not just the residents of Jerusalem, but it is full of the pilgrims. And because they would not want to be seen in bad light, because this guy has become very, very, very popular. So what do? They plant people in the crowds to ask controversial questions so that they can be able to trap Jesus, because they are very, very unhappy. So in the midst of the congregation that is listening to Jesus' teachings, there are people, key people from the different sects and different divisions of the priesthood, and they all have come together. Even enemies, even people who don't see eye to eye, they come together. We have the Pharisees, we have the Herodians, we have the Sadducees, we have the scribes. They all come together. And they are coming together not for the good of the people, but for the preservation of the status quo. Because Jesus has come to disrupt the status quo. And you know, we don't like disruptions. Even right now, we have been disrupted by this virus called Corona, COVID-19. And human beings generally, they don't like disruptions. They like staying the way they are. Now, particularly if there are some privileges that comes with the status quo. So now, we are going to consider a few of the controversies that were pushed to Jesus, and he addressed them head on. The first controversy was from the Pharisees. And the question that they posed was, if you look at Mark chapter 12 in verse 13, then they sent to him some of the Pharisees and the Herodians to catch him in his words. To catch him in his words. Now, this means the Pharisees were the people who were looking at the affairs of religion, and they believed in the law of Moses. They were following it to the letter, and they were the people who were pointing the other Jews on the way to observe the Jewish law to the letter. And who are the Herodians? The Herodians were a militant group. They were unhappy with the rule of the Romans, and severally they had attempted to overthrow and to rebel against the Roman rule. Now, here they come, both of them together, Pharisees and the Herodians. They come together because the Roman government was taxing them. So they come, and when they had come, they said to him, "Teacher, we know that you are true and care about no one, for you do not regard the person of men, but teach the way of God in truth. Is it lawful to pay taxes to Caesar or not? Shall we pay or shall we not pay?" But he, knowing their hypocrisy, said to them, "Why do you test me? Bring me a denarius that I may see it." A denarius was the coin of the day, the currency of the day. So they brought it, and he said to them, "Whose image and inscription is this?" They said to him, "Caesar's." And Jesus answered to them, "Render to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and to God the things that are God's." And they marveled at him. You see, they wanted to trap Jesus on the question of taxes, because they were looking at a way of having Jesus punished by the Romans. So they were hoping that Jesus would say, "No, don't pay taxes. Don't pay taxes to Caesar." And thereby, they would be able to hand him over to the Roman authorities and tell the Roman authorities at Pontius Pilate that Jesus was actually against the Roman rule. So, what does Jesus do? He does not take their bait. Instead, he asks for a coin. And when he asked for that coin, he showed it to them. And he asked them, "Whose image is on this coin?" And they said, "Caesar's." In other words, the authority to spend came from Caesar. And so what did Jesus say? He says, "Render to Caesar what belongs to Caesar." It is by the government authority of the day that they were transacting, not just paying the taxes, even transacting on their normal day-to-day lives. They were using it on the authority of the government of the day. And so he said to them, fundamentally, you should give to God what belongs to God. And what belongs to God? So here comes the question. What image do we have? We are created in the image of God. And because we are created in the image of God, because this was the main reason or the main teaching of Jesus on this particular controversy, because we are created in the image of God, then we owe God not our tithes and our offerings, not our part of our times on the day of worship. We owe God our very selves. And therefore, it is important for us to know that we belong to God. We have the image of God. And because we have the image of God, then it is important that we render our lives to God. Even as we render the taxes to the government, we need to render our lives to God. And so the question is, where do you have your allegiance? Does God have your heart? Have you surrendered your heart to God? because you belong to God. You have the image of God. So that was the first controversy. It was presented by the Herodians together with the Pharisees. So to speak, that handle was jumped. But still, the religious authorities were not content. So this time round, they sat together and they wondered, how are we going to catch this man? So they decided that it was time the Sadducees were brought in. Now, the Sadducees and the Pharisees did not see eye to eye. The Sadducees were the aristocracy. They were the ruling class. They were the privileged. And they did not believe in the resurrection. And they did not believe in anything outside the 5 books of Moses. So they sent the Sadducees to Jesus. And then if you look at Mark 12 and 18, then some Sadducees who were there, who say there is no resurrection, came to him and they asked him, saying, "Teacher, Moses wrote to us that if a man's brother dies and leaves his wife behind and leaves no children, his brother should take his wife and raise up offspring for his brother." Wife inheritance, teroburu. Now there were 7 brothers. The first one took a wife, and dying he left no offspring. And the second took her, and he died, nor did he leave any offspring. And the third likewise. So the 7 had her and left no offspring. Last of all, the woman died also. Therefore, in the resurrection when they rise, whose wife will she be? For all 7 had her as wife. Jesus answered and said to them, "Are you not therefore mistaken because you do not know the scriptures nor the power of God? For when they rise from the dead, they neither marry nor are given in marriage, but are like angels in heaven. But concerning the dead, that they rise, have you not read in the book of Moses, in the burning bush passage, how God spoke to him, saying, I am the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. He is not the God of the dead, but the God of the living. You are therefore greatly mistaken." All right, this is the controversy. Is there resurrection or is there not resurrection? And if there is a resurrection, so they bring in, there was this law of Moses that allowed for wife inheritance. So they say, there was this man who got married and died before he could have children. And so as the law demands, the brothers had an obligation to help his brother's line not be completely extinguished by inheriting the wife. So 7 of them in row, they came, they had the wife did not conceive. Well, forget about the deeper questions of whether maybe it was the brothers who had a problem of not having the capacity to give birth. Whatever the reason is, that the question here is, what will happen after they rise from the dead during the day of resurrection? Remember, the Sadducees did not believe in the resurrection. And so they wanted to hear what Jesus would say about the resurrection. And Jesus gave 2 answers to that controversy. The first answer is, number 1, When we rise from the dead, when we resurrect, we are not going to continue this life. It will be the beginning of a new life. And because it is the beginning of a new life, there will be a whole new, it is not life as we know it down here. Life in eternity is not life as we know it here. So don't think that we are going to continue what we have started down here up there in heaven. The only thing that we will do up there that we have been doing down here is worship God. But even then, we will do it at a whole new level. And so, hii maneno ya kuoa, we are not going to be male or female up there. There will be no sex in heaven. Because we are not going to be sexual beings. We are not going to be defined by sexuality. We are going to be like angels. That is what the text says. So, don't worry about that nonsense of whose wife is she going to be. However, fundamentally, because I know that the question that you are actually asking without asking is whether there is a resurrection, I want to tell you that there is a resurrection. You believe in Moses. Yes. Let me take you back to the burning bush. And when God confronted Moses at the burning bush, what did God say about his identity? He said, I am the God of Abraham. The key word being, I am. He did not say that I was the God of Abraham. Remember, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob were long gone. God did not tell Moses that he was the God of Abraham. He told Moses that he is the God of Abraham. I am the God of Abraham, not I was the God of Abraham. In other words, for God, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob were still living even though dead. Therefore, life does not end with death. Death is not an end, it is a transition. And it is important that we understand that death is not an end, it is a transition. It is only an end in marriage, and that is why we are careful when we join people in marriage. We join them till death do them part. But in terms of eternity, death is a transition. In terms of marriage, death is an end. End of the story, end of the controversy, and there is nothing else they could do. So they went away, and they still wanted to know how they could get Jesus and have him arrested. And that is why, when all else failed, they activated the final stage of this conspiracy. They looked for a man inside the camp of Jesus. And that is what we are going to consider in the next devotion. May God bless us. May God bless you. Have a blessed Thursday. Hope to see you later as we consider the day, the night when Jesus was taken in by the authorities. And we shall consider the difficult night that Jesus faced and the prayers of Gethsemane. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.